In the quiet hills of Nsukka, where red earth clung to bare feet and the evenings carried the scent of firewood and palm oil, there lived the woman whose name held weight in every household, Madam Ebere. She was not always feared. Once she had been admired. A widow who survived hardship, a mother who raised her only son with relentless devotion, a woman who sacrificed everything so that her child would never taste the bitterness she had known. Her son Obinna was her pride, her proof that her suffering meant something. To her, he was not just a son, he was her life's work. When Obinna brought home a wife, the village rejoiced. Ifunanya, her name meant love, and she carried it effortlessly. She was gentle without weakness, respected without submission, warm in a way that drew people in without trying. Even Madam Ebere smiled that day, but it was a smile that did not reach her heart, because the moment she saw how Obinna looked at his wife, she felt something unfamiliar raise within her. Not fear, not anger, but something darker, replacement. At first it was subtle. Madam Ebere would correct how Ifunanya cooked, rearrange things she had already arranged, interrupt her when she spoke. Little things, small cuts, but over time, those cuts became wounds. She began to notice how her son no longer sat with her in the evenings, how his laughter now belonged to another woman, how decisions were no longer hers to make, and each night, alone in her room, she whispered to herself, "After all I did, she came and took him." Then came the children, not one, not two, but 7. Each birth was celebrated across the compound, drums, laughter, songs of gratitude. But to Madam Ebere, each child felt like another door closing. With every newborn, Ifunanya's place in the family deepened and Madam Ebere's faded. The children loved their mother fearlessly. They ran to her for comfort, clung to her wrapper, called her name in joy, in fear, in sleep. And though they respected their grandmother, they did not need her. That truth cut deeper than any insult. One evening, Madam Ebere sat alone in the courtyard. The moonlight stretched across the ground, pale and cold. Inside, she could hear laughter, her son, her grandchildren, her daughter-in-law. A family, her family, but no longer hers. Something inside her hardened. If I cannot have my son back, then she will feel what it means to lose everything. The opportunity came quietly. Ifunanya went to the market one afternoon, leaving the children behind. The compound was calm, still. Madam Ebere called them with a voice sweeter than it had ever been. "Come, my children, I made something special for you." They came running, 7 little ones, trusting, laughing, alive with innocence. She watched them closely as they ate. For a moment, just a moment, her hands trembled, a flicker of doubt, but it passed because pain had already blinded her. It started small, a cough, a dropped spoon, then a body fell, another and another. 7 children, collapsing like scattered leaves in harmattan wind. The laughter died instantly, and in that place, silence, heavy, unforgiving, Madam Ebere stared. Her chest rose and fell, but something inside her had already begun to crack, because in that silence, there was no victory. When Ifunanya returned, the air felt wrong, too still, too quiet. She called their names, once, twice, then she saw them, her children, her life, lying motionless. The scream that left her was not human. It was the sound of a soul tearing apart. As the compound filled with chaos and grief, an old woman emerged from the crowd. No one knew when she arrived or where she came from. Bent with age, wrapped in faded cloth, eyes that carried something ancient, she moved slowly, deliberately, as though time itself waited for her. She looked at the children, then at Madame Ebere, and said softly, "Hatred is a fire that burns the hands that carries it." She knelt, placed her hands on the children, and began to whisper, words older than memory, older than pain. For a moment, nothing happened. The world held its breath. Then, a finger twitched, a chest rose, a cough broke the silence. One by one, life returned. 7 children, 7 miracles. Ifunanya wept, holding her children as though the world might steal them again. The compound erupted in disbelief and gratitude, but Madame Ebere remained where she was, frozen, because in that moment she saw clearly not the children, not the daughter-in-law she hated, not the son she felt she lost, but herself, what she had become. A woman who let love rot into possession, who let loneliness grow into hatred, who nearly destroyed her own blood to satisfy a wound inside her. No one needed to punish her, because she would carry that truth for the rest of her life. From that day on, Madame Ebere changed. She spoke less, watched more, kept her distance. She tried in small ways to mend what she had broken, but some things cannot be restored to what they were. The children still lived, but a quiet fear lingered. Ifunanya still respected her, but never fully trusted her again. And Obinna loved his mother, but never looked at her the same way. In Nsukka, the story of Madame Ebere did not fade with time. It grew roots, whispered from elders to children beneath moonlight skies, and shared in quiet moments when families gathered close. It became more than a story. It became a warning, a mirror held up to every heart that had ever loved too tightly, feared too deeply, or held on when it was time to let go. They would say her name softly, not with hatred, but with a kind of heavy understanding, because somewhere within her story lived the truth many were afraid to confront. That love, when twisted by control, can slowly lose its purity and become something unrecognizable, something dangerous, not loud, not obvious, but quietly destructive. Love, when poisoned by control, can become more dangerous than hate. Hate announces itself, sharp and visible, but poisoned love hides behind sacrifice, behind entitlement, behind the belief that one has the right to possess another. And by the time its damage is revealed, it has already carved wounds too deep to erase. Though the house of that family remained full of laughter, of footsteps, of growing children, something unseen lingered in the spaces between them. Trust, once broken, did not return whole. Smiles became more careful, affection more measured, and even joy carried the faint shadow of what had almost been lost. Because not all wounds bleed, some settle quietly into the soul, shaping how people love, how they trust, how they remember. And though life may continue and voices may rise again in that house, some wounds do not seek healing. They simply remain, reminding everyone that even love, when left unchecked, can become the very thing that destroys what it was meant to protect. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, share, subscribe.